everybody, welcome to HEJ250-350 Public Relations. This is week 11 and we're talking about PR evaluation. This is quite a long lecture, so I've broken it into 3 smaller lectures and this is the first part. So today we're going to examine the theory and practice of PR evaluation. This is a result of a PR campaign, but it's also an integral part of the research planning of a PR campaign. So we'll look at different approaches to PR evaluation. This can be outsourced, especially by bigger organisations, but increasingly smaller organisations are engaging in DIY or do-it-yourself media monitoring. And as the analytics tools, especially in social media platforms, becomes more nuanced and user-friendly, this is becoming much more common and cost-effective tool for organisations to do their evaluation. So, the 4 stages of PR evaluation. The first one, at the beginning of a process, is for an organisation to look at itself and to understand what it is and what it's doing. And its broader picture, what community it's serving, what are its, does it have a market, does it have a community, who are the voices that it's attempting to reach. In stage 2, that process becomes a little bit more detailed. So it's not just the wider community, it's who are the stakeholders, who is the real direct audience that the campaign is attempting to reach. What are the objectives of the campaign? What are the goals of the campaign? So those things need to be determined in stage 2. Stage 3, planning how to get there, designing the communication strategy, determining the overall budget, the timelines, etc., and then implementing the campaign. So this is the time where the real nuts and bolts of the campaign are worked out, and then the campaign is made available to its stakeholders for them to engage with the communication that is being disseminated. And then stage 4 is impacted evaluation. So, it's the gauging of how successful or what went wrong with the campaign. Stage 4, campaign evaluation. Some of the questions that can be asked are, was the goals and objectives achieved? Did the target audience take the action that was sought? This can be an easy question, or these can be easy questions if it's, say, a mercantile or some other form of objective. So if it's getting a target market to purchase a product or change products or something like that, then that information may be reasonably readily available. But in other instances, say a public health campaign where it's human behaviour is what is being requested to alter or develop, then the evaluation process can take a lot longer and can be a whole industry of itself. And then, well, of course, you have to always examine things about the timeliness and the budgetary constraints of a PR campaign. That is true for every organisation. But then the big question is, if the goals and objectives weren't reached, or the proper stakeholders weren't reached, or any other failure of that campaign, then why not? And what were the hindrances to that? Where once PR campaigns would evaluate and monitor, pretty much near the end of a campaign, I guess, for want of a better term, in the analog days, which could be problematic, because if a huge budget was put into a campaign and it failed, then the only way that success could be really determined next time was to actually just alter what was done and then try it again and see if the next time it worked. But with digital technologies and social media and all the other tools that we've mentioned, evaluation is now much more of an ongoing and integral process to a PR campaign, and monitoring can happen all the time, and campaigns are now far more fluid and adaptable to changing mid-course than they used to be, say in the days of legacy media or we're not relied on large advertising campaigns or whatever. Nowadays, with social media, messages can be changed and developed and altered, you know, whenever's necessary. So the process of monitoring has changed a little bit and is a far more ongoing and immediate and very responsive process. So here's a quote. PR people are communicators, analysts, strategists, and tacticians who are always making judgments in fluid and often complex environments. So how can they deduce whether the program is flying fast or heading straight for a mountain of problems? Gut feel and informal feedback are sometimes useful but often misleading. To make accurate judgments, solid planning and valid, reliable information are needed. So what that's saying is that the evaluation and monitoring process is very much about data. You know, it's not about instinct and it's not about gut feel. It's not about experience with the market or experience with the stakeholders. It is about numbers, and it is about actions on the part of stakeholders. So if they are doing what is required of them, then the campaign is seen as a success. If the numbers are where they are, etc. So it's a very analytical process. Here's just a short clip from Professor Jim McNamara at UTS.
My research is in the broad area of public communication, which is advertising, public relations, government and political communication. Specifically in that, I look at two areas. First area is evaluation of campaigns, because it's very important to judge the effectiveness. The second area is a relatively new area where I'm looking at organisational listening, because so much focus is on organisations speaking, organisations running campaigns to express their voice, but I'm finding organisations are not very good at listening. Evaluation of communication is very important, because worldwide companies and governments spend more than $500 million a year on advertising. Just in Australia alone, state governments spend $100 million a year. So whether that's effective is very, very important. So evaluation is critically important to avoid wastage of taxpayers and investors' money. And I believe organisation listening is very important, because I think what we're seeing with the Trump election in the US, the Brexit vote in the UK, hung parliaments in Australia, is that people are dissatisfied with a lot of organisations. And one of the reasons we're finding for that is that these organisations do a lot of talking to people and are not listening adequately.
So what is PR evaluation? It's an essential component of any strategic communication system. It's a systematic application of research undertaken to understand the value of a given PR campaign, its concept, design, and its reach to the target audience. And a PR evaluation can determine effectiveness, achievement of goals and objectives, and efficiency. So, again, what should be measured? Achieving the goals, reaching the stakeholders, what tactics and tools were most useful in reaching the stakeholders. So you can see that we have notions of stakeholders and objectives, but then it can be broken down into a lot more categorizations and a lot more complex discussion points from those basic things. Can we measure this effectiveness? If so, what is the criteria? Okay, so how do you measure effectiveness? Again, this takes particular skill and a particular type of person who can really break down this type of data, and especially what's really important is asking the right questions. Did the stakeholders take the action we sought? What's the strategy completed on time and on budgets? And if not, what were the impediments to the desired outcome? So, a lot of organisations will talk about this kind of stuff. There will be an awareness of it, and as McNamara said there's often a lot of lip service by both organisations and in that, the wider kind of sphere of PA users, and he was talking particularly about governments. There's an awareness of monitoring, there's awareness of consultation and all that kind of thing, but its application can be somehow missing. So for monitoring and evaluation to be really effective, it has to be implementable. It has to be something that can be implemented by the organisation and also be relevant to the stakeholders. That's the end of this first little part of the lecture. I will be talking to you again in the second part of the lecture.